The other very, very interesting experience I had that I think few people have had, when I was in my first squadron in P2s, it was toward the end of my tour. In April of 1962, the United States had Operation Dominic, and it was the last nuclear testing that the United States did. And they did 31 tests of nuclear weapons, and they were in the 1 megaton range, megaton, million tons to TNT. And so they had rented or borrowed an island called Christmas Island. I think it's also called, or legally, Kiribati, which is just about at the equator south of Hawaii. And that's where the drop zone was 35 miles north of Kiribati, north of Christmas. B-52s out of Hawaii, Hickam Air Force Base, would fly down there, and there was a target drone 35 miles north of the island of where we were. And some of the times when they did their tests, we were airborne, and most of the time we were on the land.
Wow.
So I've probably seen 20 airborne bursts of nuclear weapons, which most people have never seen. It's an absolutely phenomenal experience. It's a little bit of a lesson in physics, because the whole island was wired with speakers, and the island's not real large, but they had speakers. And when the drop was going to go off, you knew exactly when, and everybody on the island that was military had to muster at one place. And they would do a countdown on the speakers, starting with 25 all the way down to 1, and then boom. And you had dark glasses, and everybody had dosimeters that was in the program, because you were flying in the air, you were on the ground, whatever, and they, from a medical purpose, they wanted to make sure they measured the amount of Roentgens that anybody might absorb. You were all told to look away because it would literally blind you. If you looked at the explosion with unaided eye, it would literally blind you. It would burn the corneas. The first thing was the light. Even though you're looking away, it would just, in fact, there was one picture in the Honolulu Advertiser, and the weapon was dropped at Johnson Island, which was about 300-400 miles away, and it lit up Honolulu at night just like it was daytime. It was just like daytime. They took pictures on the beach. It was just like daytime because of the light. Then the next thing you feel is the heat on the back of your neck. You can actually feel the heat.
And this is 35 miles away.
This is 35 miles away. Then the wind would go by, and then the last thing, which is slowest, is sound. Then the sound, you'd hear the boom, the big explosion. The thing that sticks in my mind, of course, we couldn't take any pictures. You could, because of classification, you couldn't take any photographs. But the edges of the mushroom cloud, everybody's seen pictures of that, but the edges were just churning. The energy was just amazing. And actually ice crystals would form on the edges of that churning. Now the job I didn't want, when we were in Christmas Island, we had Air Force guys, I'm trying to remember the type of airplane, they flew through the cloud collecting data. Now they had to have protective suits on and so forth, because we were safe enough 35 miles away, you weren't going to get much radiation or anything that would bother you. But they actually flew through the edges of the cloud to collect data during the nuclear tests. But that was a very unusual. Our mission, the reason we were there, we would fly out into the area of the drop zone for about 3 days preceding the drop, and make sure no shipping was headed into it, or for a couple of days. And in particular, the hours before, we would drop sonobuoys with containers that would float with messages if we couldn't get voice contact with them. And of course they had what they call NOTAMs, which is notices to mariners, which all shipping gets throughout the world, telling them this is a drop zone, stay out. But some of them, because of economic reasons, sort of ignored it. So we would go in and then wave our wings and head out in a different direction and tell them, head this way, you know, you got to get out of here. But that was our mission, to make sure there was nothing, no shipping moving into that area before the drops went off.